The first shoe hit me square in the chest. I barely had time to register the shock before the second one grazed my ear. Within moments, the pristine stage of the Grand Aurora Convention Center became a target range. With me at the bullseye, 15 years of lies. The chant started somewhere in the back rows and rippled forward like a wave. 15 years of lies. Hundreds of stakeholders, families who had invested their life savings, medical professionals who had staked their reputations, community leaders who had rallied their towns, all on their feet, faces contorted with rage. The expensive footwear they'd worn to what was supposed to be our triumphant announcement now became ammunition. My team rushed toward me, panic in their eyes. Mira, my assistant for the past 8 years, grabbed my elbow. "We need to get you out of here," she whispered urgently. "Security has cleared the back exit." I watched as the executive row emptied. One by one, my colleagues, the same ones who had insisted I should be the face of today's announcement, slipped away through side doors. Not one of them looked back at me. Of course, position the only female board member as the sacrifice, then vanish when it all implodes. Classic. Something shifted inside me at that moment. A coldness settled in my chest, where terror had been moments before. I pulled my arm free from Mira's grip and stepped forward, closer to the edge of the stage. The shoe throwing hadn't fully stopped, but my movement caught some attention. "Launch canceled," I announced, my voice somehow cutting through the chaos without shouting. "But I have something better to announce." The barrage gradually slowed, then ceased. Wary, confused silence replaced the fury, though I could see it still simmering beneath the surface. I took a steadying breath and surveyed the faces before me. Families who had trusted us with their hopes, their dreams, their futures. "Today wasn't supposed to end this way," I said simply. "But perhaps it's exactly how it needed to." When I joined this company as a bright-eyed researcher, I genuinely believed our medical treatment would help thousands suffering from Terrien syndrome. This rare genetic condition had baffled scientists for decades, and our early research seemed promising. Affected families became our earliest backers, investing not just money, but faith. 6 years into development came the devastating truth. Our approach would never work. The science was fundamentally flawed. We couldn't manipulate the gene sequence in the way we'd hoped. The board's decision was swift. Keep raising money, keep promising breakthroughs. "These families trust you, Bailey," the chairman told me. "Your compassion makes them believe. You'll become our chief patient advocate." When I hesitated, suddenly my brother faced mysterious audit problems with his small business. My mother's retirement community found issues with her housing contract. The message was clear, so I became their public face. I held hands with suffering patients. I accepted tearful hugs from desperate parents, all while knowing we were selling expensive lies. But appearances can be deceiving. What you don't know, I continued to the silent auditorium, is what I discovered 3 years ago in our research database. I glanced toward the executives, now frozen by the exits, no longer trying to escape but too frightened to return to their seats. "Our company hasn't been developing a treatment for Terrien syndrome. We've been studying how this condition appears in populations, and I found something nobody was meant to discover. This supposedly random genetic condition occurs almost exclusively near certain manufacturing facilities." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Manufacturing facilities owned by our parent company. The condition isn't random. It's caused by industrial exposure. They've known this for 15 years. The chairman surged toward the stage, red-faced. "That's completely false," he shouted. "Is it?" I asked, gesturing to Mira. The screen behind me lit up with a map showing affected families clustered around facility locations, revealing an unmistakable pattern impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Instead of admitting responsibility, they created our medical division to pretend to search for treatments, buying time while avoiding liability. I nodded toward the back of the auditorium, where a team in lab coats was entering, wheeling in equipment. For the past 2 years, I've been working with independent scientists. Today, we're offering free testing that can detect these industrial compounds in your homes, water, and tissue samples. Tests that will prove exactly what caused Terrien syndrome and who's responsible. As security blocked the executives from leaving, I addressed the audience one final time. For 15 years, they used me to sell false hope while hiding their responsibility. Today, I'm giving you what they never intended, the truth about what happened to your families. The silence erupted into something powerful, not desperate applause clinging to empty promises, but the thunderous sound of people glimpsing justice on the horizon. As the chairman was escorted past me, he hissed, "You've destroyed everything." I smiled for the first time that day. No, I just finally told the truth. Before we continue with what happened next, I want to thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt powerless against something bigger than yourself, I think you'll understand why I made the choices I did. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to hear more stories like mine. Your support means everything to complex stories like these being told. If you've experienced corporate deception or found yourself trapped in an impossible situation, share your thoughts in the comments below. Now, let me tell you how I got here. My name is Bailey, and before becoming the whistleblower who brought down a pharmaceutical giant, I was a biochemist with a specialty in genetic disorders. I grew up with a fierce sense of justice, maybe because my father was a small-town judge who taught me that truth always matters, even when it's inconvenient. I joined GeneLife Research 15 years ago, fresh out of my doctorate program. I was drawn to their groundbreaking approach to genetic disorders, particularly their focus on Terrien syndrome. This rare condition affects neurological development in children, causing progressive loss of motor function and, in many cases, early death. The company promised a revolutionary treatment approach that targeted the faulty gene sequence. The first 5 years were exhilarating. Our team made genuine progress, and I believed wholeheartedly in our mission. I met families affected by Terrien, saw the children struggling to hold toys or form words as the disease progressed. I promised them hope, and I meant it. Then came the devastating setback. Our approach hit a fundamental roadblock. The gene therapy we'd developed failed catastrophically in advanced testing, showing not just ineffectiveness, but dangerous side effects. In a closed-door meeting, our head scientist Elton admitted what we'd all been avoiding. Our approach was fundamentally flawed. "We need to announce this publicly," I insisted. "We have thousands of families waiting for this treatment. We've taken millions in investments based on our promises." The room fell silent. Then Chairman Warner Reese smiled thinly. "Bailey, you're an exceptional scientist, but you don't understand business. We've built a $15 billion valuation on this research. If we announce failure now, we collapse." "So what's your solution?" I asked. "Pivot quietly, repurpose research, buy time." "That's fraud," I said bluntly. Warner's smile vanished. "That's survival. And speaking of survival, how's your brother's little accounting business? And your mother's retirement situation? It would be a shame if there were complications." The threat wasn't subtle. My brother Liam had struggled for years to build his business. My mother's health was fragile. Her retirement community, her only source of stability. "What do you want from me?" I asked, feeling trapped. "You connect with these families. They trust you. We need you to become the face of our patient outreach. Keep them believing while we figure out our next move." I became chief patient advocate, traveling the country, meeting families affected by Terrien. I held their hands, promised breakthroughs were coming. I justified it by telling myself that maybe, somehow, we would find a solution. But as months stretched into years with manufactured, promising developments that went nowhere, the weight of my deception became unbearable. I couldn't sleep, couldn't look at myself in the mirror. Then came the discovery that changed everything. Working late one night, I accessed research files I wasn't supposed to see. Geographic distribution studies of Terrien cases across the country. The pattern was unmistakable. Clusters around specific locations. Not random genetic occurrence, but environmental correlation. I dug deeper, breaking through security protocols, downloading files onto hidden drives. The truth emerged slowly, horrifically. Chemical compounds from Starcrest Industries' manufacturing plants were causing genetic mutations in exposed populations. Starcrest, GenLife's parent company. They'd known all along. The entire research program wasn't to find a cure. It was to study the effects of their own negligence while pretending to help. A 15-year cover-up of corporate-caused illness affecting thousands of children. I was sick for days after discovering this. All those parents, looking at me with hope in their eyes while I fed them lies. I had become part of the machine destroying their lives. That's when I decided, if I couldn't save these families with medicine, I would save them with truth. For 2 years, I worked in secret. I reached out to Dr. Leanne Avery, an environmental toxicologist who had previously raised concerns about Starcrest's facilities. Together, we assembled a team: scientists, lawyers, former regulatory officials, all working off-grid, building an irrefutable case. We developed testing protocols that could identify the specific chemical compounds in water sources, soil samples, and human tissue. We mapped exposure patterns against Terrian diagnoses. The evidence became overwhelming, all while I continued smiling for the cameras, reassuring investors, hugging desperate parents, playing my role perfectly, the compassionate face of fraud. Warner and the board grew to trust me completely. When pressure mounted from stakeholders for concrete results after 15 years of promises, they decided a major product launch was needed, with me as the centerpiece. "We'll announce a breakthrough treatment," Warner told the boardroom. "Pre-orders, premium pricing, massive publicity. But we don't have a treatment," I pointed out. "We have very promising early results," he corrected with a wink. "By the time we'd need to deliver, we'll have figured something out, or restructured, or merged. Business solutions. The families need medical solutions," I said. He patted my hand. "That's why they love you, Bailey. Always the idealist. Just do what you do best. Give them hope. We'll handle the rest." What the board didn't know was that I had already connected with every major stakeholder group. In encrypted messages and secret meetings, I had shared glimpses of what I'd discovered. Just enough to prepare them for what was coming, but not enough to trigger the company's suspicions. The day of the product launch, I dressed carefully in a simple gray suit. No flash, no distraction. I wanted nothing to pull focus from what would happen. The Grand Aurora Convention Center was packed. Families, medical professionals, investors, media, top executives sat in the front row, smiling broadly. Warner gave me a thumbs up as I took the stage. I began with the script they'd prepared, talking about our 15-year journey, the challenges overcome, the breakthroughs achieved. I could see the hope in the eyes of parents clutching photos of their children, the trust I had systematically betrayed for years. Then came the moment. I was supposed to announce our revolutionary treatment protocol with projected 70% efficacy. Instead, I paused, looked directly at those families. "I need to tell you the truth," I said simply. The executive's smiles froze. Warner half rose from his seat. "For 15 years, this company has lied to you. There is no treatment. There never was. Your money, your trust, your hope, all taken under false pretenses." The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted, and the shoes began to fly. After my shocking announcement, the next few hours passed in a blur. Security ushered the executives into a side room, while the families were directed to areas where my team of scientists had set up testing stations. Journalists swarmed, cameras flashing, questions overlapping into a wall of noise. By nightfall, I sat alone in my hotel room, watching the story explode across news channels. My phone hadn't stopped ringing. Calls from journalists, regulatory officials, and nervous board members. I refused to answer. I'd made my move. There was no going back. A soft knock at my door broke my trance. I opened it to find Mira, still in her work clothes, eyes rimmed red from exhaustion. "They've called an emergency board meeting for 7 a.m., she said, stepping inside. "Warner's trying to contain this, claiming you had a mental breakdown. They're preparing a statement saying you've been under tremendous strain and that your accusations are unfounded." I nodded, having expected nothing less. "And the testing. Preliminary results from 30 families already show the chemical markers. It's exactly what we predicted, Bailey. The correlation is undeniable." I sank onto the edge of the bed, suddenly overwhelmed by what I'd set in motion. 15 years of deception had ended in a single afternoon, but the fight was just beginning. "Warner called me," Mira added, her voice dropping. "Offered me triple my salary to hand over the details of what we've been doing behind the scenes. Said there's still time to salvage this if he knows what we have." I looked up sharply, studying her face, and a small, fierce smile crept across her features. I told him to go to hell. For the first time that day, I laughed, a sound that felt strange and liberating. The hotel phone rang, interrupting our moment. Mira answered, then held it out to me. "It's Dr. Avery." Leanne Avery's voice came through crisp and urgent. "Bailey, we've got a problem. Starcrest just dispatched a team to seize all testing equipment and samples under some emergency corporate intellectual property order. They're claiming our testing methods use proprietary technology they own." My stomach tightened. "They can't do that. They're doing it. Right now. They've got private security and some questionable court order. We need to move everything immediately." I was already on my feet. "Where can we go?" "I've got a backup lab at the university. Not official space. It's equipment they were going to surplus. If we move now, we can secure most of the samples before they arrive. On my way, I said, hanging up and turning to Mira. I need you to contact every family we tested today. Tell them not to open their doors to anyone claiming to be from Starcrest or GeneLife. Anyone who hasn't been tested needs to meet us at Northside University Basement Level B, Old Chemistry Wing. As we rushed from the hotel, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Parking garage, Level 3, black sedan. You're being watched. I showed Mira, who immediately scanned the lobby. There, she whispered, nodding toward a man in a dark suit pretending to read a newspaper. And there, another by the elevator, speaking too quietly into his earpiece. We slipped out through the kitchen, cutting through the hotel restaurant and exiting into the service alley. The night air hit my face, cold and sharp. We ran 3 blocks before reaching the parking structure. On level 3, a black sedan waited with darkened windows. The passenger door opened as we approached. Inside sat Glenn, our legal counsel, who had been working with me secretly for months. They're moving faster than we anticipated, he said as we pulled away. Warner's called in every favor he has. They've got judges signing orders in the middle of the night. Can they really seize our evidence? I asked. Glenn shook his head. Not legally, not with a proper hearing, but they're counting on creating enough confusion to disrupt the testing and discredit the results. Classic delay tactic while they destroy evidence at their facilities. At Northside University, we found Leanne directing a chaotic operation. Volunteers were unpacking equipment in a dusty, forgotten laboratory. The space smelled of disuse and old chemicals, but the determination on everyone's faces made it feel like the most important room in the world. We've got about 60% of the samples secured, Leanne reported, but we need more. These aren't enough to establish the pattern beyond doubt. I nodded, understanding what she wasn't saying. If we couldn't prove the geographic correlation conclusively, Starcrest could claim the cases were random genetic occurrences. Our entire case would collapse. The annual Tarian Syndrome Family Conference is this weekend in Denver, I said. Hundreds of affected families attend. If we could test them, Starcrest will be watching, Glenn warned. After today, they'll have security at every Tarian-related event. Then we don't make it about testing, I replied, an idea forming. We make it about sharing my story. I'll offer to speak, a mea culpa session. Families will want to hear directly from me. We can set up private testing under the guise of something else. The plan took shape quickly. Mira would handle logistics, Glenn would work on legal protection, and Leanne would prepare a mobile testing protocol that could be disguised as standard health screenings. As dawn broke, we had our strategy, but another problem loomed. I couldn't return to my apartment. Starcrest would have it watched. Stay with me, Leanne offered. My building has excellent security and private parking. Later that morning, watching the board meeting I should have attended from Leanne's laptop, I saw Warner perform masterfully. He expressed deep concern for my mental health, praising my years of dedication, while suggesting the pressure had finally broken me. The board voted unanimously to place me on compassionate leave, pending a full investigation of my concerning allegations. My company email was already disabled, my badge access revoked. 15 years of my life, erased with a single vote. They're doing damage control, Glenn observed, making you look unstable while they prepare a fuller response. That afternoon, my brother Liam called in a panic. The tax auditors showed up at my office with a warrant, he said, voice tight with stress. They're taking everything, Bailey. All my files, computers, everything. What's going on? My throat constricted. I'm so sorry, Liam. This is Warner, retaliating against me. By coming after me? Bailey, this could ruin my business, my family, my clients. I know. I'm going to fix this. I promise. But even as I said it, another call came in. My mother's retirement community claiming she needed to vacate her apartment due to contract irregularities. Warner was making good on his threats, using my family as leverage. I spent the next hours making arrangements, helping my mother move temporarily to Liam's house, connecting him with accountants who could help with the audit. The message from Warner was clear. Back down or watch your family suffer. That evening, as we finalized our Denver conference plans, my personal phone rang with a number I recognized all too well. Bailey, Warner's smooth voice filled my ear. This has gotten out of hand, don't you think? Let's talk, just the two of us. I have nothing to say to you, Warner. I think you do. His tone hardened slightly. Your brother's audit problems could disappear very easily. Your mother could return to her home. Your career could be salvaged. All it would take is a simple statement clarifying that you misspoke due to stress and overwork. You mean lie again, cover for you again. I mean choose the wise path, because right now, you're on a very destructive one. Not just for yourself, but for everyone you care about. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of his threat. Is that all? Think about it, Bailey. 15 years is a long time to throw away on a misunderstanding. I'll expect your call by tomorrow morning. After he hung up, I sat in silence, hands shaking. He's scared, Leanne said, watching me closely. That's why he's applying pressure. We must be on to something big. Something bigger than we realized, Glenn added. They wouldn't pull out threats this explicit unless the stakes were enormous. I nodded slowly. Then we need more evidence before Denver. Something Warner doesn't expect. That night, unable to sleep, I reviewed everything we'd gathered. The clusters of Tarian cases near Starcrest facilities were undeniable, but we still lacked the smoking gun. Direct evidence that the company had known about the connection and covered it up. Without that, Warner could claim the company had been unaware of any link. The GeneLife Research Division could be portrayed as a genuine, if unsuccessful, attempt to help affected families. I needed something that proved intent, something that showed they'd knowingly hidden the truth for 15 years while pretending to search for treatments. As I scrolled through files we downloaded from the company servers, one name kept appearing in the earliest research. Dr. Kira Verdon, the original lead scientist who had left GeneLife abruptly in year 3 of the program. Official records stated she'd retired for health reasons, moving overseas. No one had heard from her since. Mira, I called, waking her from where she'd fallen asleep on Leanne's couch. Can you find anything on Dr. Kira Verdon? Current location? Contact information? Anything? For the next few hours, we dug through public records, social media, and academic databases. Dr. Verdon had effectively disappeared. No publications, no conferences, no digital footprint of any kind after leaving GeneLife. It's like she vanished, Mira said, rubbing her tired eyes. Or was erased, I thought. Just as we were about to give up, Glenn discovered a small obituary from a Vermont newspaper dated 8 years earlier. Dr. Kira Verdon had died quietly in a small town called Mapleton. Heart failure, according to the brief notice. Heart failure at 47? Leanne questioned, reading over my shoulder. That's unusually young. Something felt wrong. The timing, just as our research would have been revealing the first clear patterns of environmental correlation. Kira's sudden retirement, her complete disappearance, and then a quiet death in an obscure town. I need to go to Mapleton, I decided. There might be something there. Papers, research, anything Kira might have left behind. The Denver conference is in 3 days, Glenn reminded me. I'll be back in time. This could be our missing piece. The next morning, I boarded a flight to Vermont, using cash and an old college friend's ID that Mira had arranged. If Warner was tracking my movements, he wouldn't expect this detour. Mapleton revealed itself as a picture-perfect New England town. White church steeple, maple-lined Main Street, and suspicious looks directed at any outsider asking questions. At the local diner, I claimed to be a former colleague of Kira's, only recently hearing of her passing. Dr. Verdon kept to herself, the waitress told me, refilling my coffee cup. Lived up on Ridge Road in that blue house with all the bird feeders. Funny thing to do when you're sick. Put up bird feeders, like she was planning to watch them for years. The blue house stood partially hidden by overgrown bushes, clearly unoccupied for some time. A realtor's sign hung crookedly by the mailbox, weathered by several seasons of neglect. I called the number and arranged to view the property immediately, claiming to be relocating to the area. It's been on the market for years, the realtor explained as she unlocked the door. Dr. Verdon had no family, and her estate attorney hasn't been motivated to price it competitively. The house felt frozen in time, furniture draped in dust covers, kitchen cupboards still containing canned goods, bookshelves lined with medical journals. As the realtor showed me around, I scanned for anything useful, any hidden clue. The basement is unfinished, she said apologetically, opening a door to reveal steep wooden stairs. Dr. Verdon used it for storage mostly. My heart raced as we descended into the cool, dim space. Against the far wall stood a line of metal filing cabinets, and beside them, cardboard boxes labeled in precise handwriting. GeneLife research materials, personal copies. I'll need some time to consider the space, I told the realtor. Would you mind if I stayed a bit longer to take measurements? Alone in the basement, I moved quickly, opening boxes and scanning contents. Most contained routine research papers, published studies, conference presentations, material already available publicly. Then, in the bottom drawer of the second filing cabinet, I found a locked metal box. No key in sight. I searched frantically through desk drawers upstairs, checked obvious hiding places, even lifted the mattress in the bedroom. Nothing. In the kitchen, I noticed a collection of bird figurines arranged on a windowsill. One, a small painted cardinal, seemed slightly out of place among the more elaborate pieces. On a hunch, I picked it up and turned it over. A small key was taped to its base. My hands trembled as I removed the key from beneath the bird figurine. Racing back to the basement, I knelt before the metal box, inserted the key, and held my breath as the lock clicked open. Inside lay a leather-bound journal and a small external hard drive. The journal's pages were filled with Kira's meticulous handwriting, detailing her growing suspicions about the Tarian syndrome cases. Early entries showed her excitement about the research, believing they were genuinely seeking a cure. Then came the pivot. June 12th. I read aloud. Today, I confronted Warner about the geographic clustering of cases. The correlation with Starcrest facilities is statistically impossible to dismiss. His response chilled me. That's precisely why we created this division, Kira, to control the narrative. When I suggested we had an ethical obligation to report this, he reminded me of my non-disclosure agreement and the career-ending consequences of breaking it. I flipped through more pages, my horror growing. Kira had documented everything. Meetings where executives openly discussed the cover-up, strategies to divert attention from the environmental cause, even calculations of how much cheaper it was to fund failed research than to clean up their manufacturing processes or pay damages to affected families. The last entry was dated shortly before her retirement. They're watching me now. Warner made it clear that my continued good health depends on my silence. I'm taking copies of what I can, but I need to disappear. If anyone ever finds this, know that Starcrest has been poisoning communities for decades. Tarian syndrome isn't the only consequence, just the most visible one. I carefully placed the journal in my bag and pocketed the hard drive. The realtor called down that she needed to leave for another appointment. I'll lock up, I promised, heading upstairs with newfound urgency. As I stepped outside, a dark SUV slowed as it passed the house. The driver's face was hidden behind sunglasses, but something about his deliberate pace sent warning signals through me. I walked casually to my rental car, fighting the urge to run. As I pulled away, the SUV made a U-turn and fell in behind me, not bothering with subtlety now. I called Glenn. They found me. Someone's following me from Kira's house. Are you sure it's them? Black SUV, tinted windows appeared right after I found something big. Yeah, I'm sure. What did you find? Kira's journal. Hard evidence that Starcrest knew about the connection from the beginning. She documented everything, Glenn, plus a hard drive that might contain even more. His voice sharpened. Get to a public place. Don't go back to your hotel. I glanced in my mirror. The SUV was still there, maintaining a consistent distance. There's a downtown area coming up. I'll try to lose them there. I pulled into Mapleton's small commercial district, weaving through narrow streets before abruptly parking and ducking into a busy cafe. From the window, I watched my follower drive past slowly, searching. I sent Mira a text. Need extraction. Cafe Blue. Mapleton VT. Being followed. Her response came quickly. Local help coming. 20 minutes. Look for Red Cap. I ordered coffee and sat with my back to the wall, watching the door. 15 minutes later, a teenage girl in a red baseball cap entered, ordered a smoothie, and sat down across from me without making eye contact. Mira sent me, she said quietly, sipping her drink. I'm Zoe. My mom has Tarian. I'm part of the Youth Advocacy Network. I blinked, surprised. Mira contacted the Youth Network? We've been helping her for months, Zoe replied with a hint of pride. We're everywhere, and no one notices us. My car's out back. When you're ready, I'll create a distraction. You go through the kitchen. The cook is my uncle. He'll let you out the service door. The coordination of this impromptu rescue operation stunned me. How many people had Mira enlisted in our cause without my knowledge? 5 minutes later, Zoe knocked over her table, creating a spectacular scene complete with fake tears about ruined homework. As staff rushed to help, I slipped into the kitchen and out the back door. Zoe's dented hatchback got me to the nearest train station, where I boarded an express to Boston, rather than risk the local airport. From Boston, I could catch a direct flight to Denver and arrive just in time for the conference. On the train, I examined the hard drive, which was password protected. I tried various combinations of Kira's name and birth date without success. What would she have used? Something meaningful, something she wouldn't forget, but not obvious to others. On a hunch, I typed Truthforder10N, and the drive unlocked. The contents exceeded my wildest hopes. Kira hadn't just kept notes. She'd secretly copied thousands of internal documents, research data, emails between executives, and most damning of all, the original environmental impact studies from before Starcrest built their facilities. Studies that explicitly warned about the genetic damage their chemical compounds could cause. They had known from the beginning. Every single case of Terrien syndrome could have been prevented. I packaged everything securely and sent copies to Glenn, Leanne, and trusted journalists using the train's Wi-Fi, then wiped my devices. If Warner's people caught me now, the evidence would already be beyond their reach. In Denver, 2 days later, I slipped into the Terrien family conference wearing a wig and glasses. Mira met me in a supply closet with fresh clothes and an update. Warner's here. With security. They're checking everyone against employee photos. My scheduled speaking slot was in 2 hours. A last-minute addition arranged through sympathetic conference organizers. What about the testing? I asked. Leanne's team is set up in the Eastern Exhibition Hall. They're registered as standard genetic counseling services. Families are already lining up. Word has spread about what we're doing. I nodded, heart racing with the knowledge of what was coming. And the other preparations? All set. The moment you finish speaking, it goes live. The next 2 hours crawled by as I hid in plain sight, volunteering at the registration desk where I could watch Warner prowling the conference. He looked haggard, his usual polished appearance frayed at the edges. Finally, it was time. I slipped backstage as the previous speaker concluded. The moderator stepped up to the microphone. Our next speaker was added to the program recently. Many of you know her as the face of Gene Life Research. Please welcome Bailey Morgan. I stepped onto the stage, removing my wig and glasses. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. In the third row, Warner half rose from his seat, face contorted with shock. For 15 years, I began. I've stood before groups like this, offering hope that wasn't real. Today, I'm here to offer something different, the truth. Security personnel moved toward the stage, but volunteers from the Youth Network, positioned strategically throughout the audience, blocked their paths. 3 days ago, I discovered the journal and research files of Dr. Kira Verdon, GeneLife's original lead scientist. What I found confirms what many families have suspected. Terrien syndrome is not a random genetic disorder. It's the direct result of chemical exposure from Starcrest Industries' manufacturing facilities. On the screens behind me, data from Kira's files began to appear, maps showing the correlation between facilities and cases, internal memos discussing the connection, profit calculations, weighing cleanup costs against potential lawsuits. Starcrest knew about this connection before they built their factories. When cases began appearing, instead of admitting responsibility, they created Gene Life Research, not to find a cure, but to control the narrative while continuing to profit from the same manufacturing processes that were causing the damage. Warner was on his feet now, shouting for the sound to be cut, but we had bypassed the conference AV system, using our own equipment. Dr. Verdon discovered this truth 12 years ago. When she threatened to reveal it, she was forced into hiding and later died under suspicious circumstances. I found her evidence, which includes proof that Starcrest executives, including Warner Reese, have been orchestrating this cover-up for 15 years, while families suffered. I paused, looking directly at Warner as he reached the edge of the stage. But here's what Warner doesn't know. While he was threatening my family and destroying my career, I wasn't just gathering evidence about Starcrest's past crimes. I was tracking their current operations. The screens changed to show real-time chemical readings from monitors the Youth Network had secretly placed around Starcrest facilities over the past year. These facilities are still releasing the same toxic compounds, still causing new cases of Terrien syndrome, still damaging children's lives, while denying responsibility. Warner managed to reach a microphone. This is slander. Security, remove her immediately. I smiled for the first time. It's too late, Warner. As I speak, the EPA is executing search warrants at every Starcrest facility based on our evidence. Federal prosecutors are unsealing indictments against top executives, and a class action lawsuit representing every affected family has just been filed. The room erupted in chaos, cheers from families, shouts from company representatives, media reporters broadcasting live. I raised my voice above the din. But my final revelation isn't about corporate crimes or legal consequences. It's about hope, real hope this time. The screens changed again to show laboratory results. Dr. Leanne Avery's team has made a breakthrough. By understanding exactly which compounds cause Terrien syndrome, they've developed a treatment protocol that can halt progression of the disease. Not a cure, but a way to prevent further deterioration. And it works. We've been testing it in secret for months. Gasps and sobs filled the room as parents absorbed this information. Starcrest will pay for this treatment for every affected child, not because they choose to, but because the courts will force them to. The money they saved by poisoning your children will now save those same children's lives. I looked directly at Warner, who stood frozen at the edge of the stage. You told me once that I was exceptional at giving people hope. You were right, but now I'm giving them something better: justice. As security finally reached me, I spoke my final words to the audience. The testing stations are open now. Treatment protocols will begin next week. This time, the promise is real. They led me from the stage to thunderous applause, past Warner, whose empire was crumbling before his eyes. He grabbed my arm as I passed. "You have no idea what you've done," he hissed. I removed his hand calmly. "Actually, I do. I've done exactly what I should have done 15 years ago. Told the truth." 3 months later, Starcrest declared bankruptcy under the weight of criminal charges and civil lawsuits. Warner and 5 other executives faced prison sentences. GeneLife Research was restructured as an independent foundation controlled by Terrien families, with all Starcrest assets transferred to fund ongoing treatment and research. The first children to receive the treatment showed remarkable stability in their condition, no further deterioration. For many families, it was the first real hope they'd had in years. As for me, I found peace in finally using my knowledge to help rather than harm. The journey from corporate puppet to whistleblower had cost me my career and temporarily endangered my family, but given me back something more valuable: my integrity. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. Sometimes standing up against powerful interests seems impossible, but the truth has its own power when enough people stand behind it. If my story resonated with you, please share it so others might find the courage to speak their truth. Leave a comment about a time you faced a difficult ethical choice, or how corporate accountability matters in your life. And if you want to hear more stories of justice finally served, subscribe for more. Remember, even the most seemingly untouchable systems can be brought down when enough voices join together and refuse to be silenced.